What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Tuesday, December 19th edition of the NBA Lineup Generator video. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And we only have 4 NBA games tonight, but it actually looks like a pretty fun slate. We have a lot of good players that we can pay for. A lot of them look similar, and right now we have the field projected to pretty heavily lean towards one or two of them at the expense of the rest. So it looks like it could be a pretty fun game theory slate, a good slate for contrarian players. We're not waiting on a ton of injury news, but there is some. Zion Williamson in particular is questionable. He will have a big impact on the slate. But for a 4-gamer, it looks like a pretty fun slate. And as always, we're going to take a look at both DraftKings and FanDuel using the NBA lineup generator. But first, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get an alert when our shows go live. If you're watching on Twitter, give that a like as well. And now we can get into it. Starting on DraftKings, the first option, as always, is to choose the type of lineup that we want to be presented with. You can choose all lineups, chalky lineups, balanced, or contrarian. If you're playing smaller field stuff, we recommend looking at chalky lineups. If you're playing the largest field stuff, we recommend contrarian. Of course, you can always just go with all lineups and give yourself the most freedom to choose what you like the most. But for this video, I'm going to choose contrarian, and I'm not going to lock anyone in. I don't recommend doing that if you are looking at a lot of lineups, but if you are playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, it can make sense to save yourself time and just lock someone in, but I'm not going to for this video. And that gets us to the next screen where we start to be presented with lineups. Now, if you're not already familiar with how the lineup generator works, it is utilizing our player projections, ownership projections, and simulation models on the back end. It's simulating the slate thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and then it's presenting you with lineups that we project to be profitable in the long run. You then have the ability to customize those lineups if you would like to, and you can also save or discard them. If you like it, just click save. If you don't like it, just click discard, and you'll be presented with another lineup that we project to be profitable. On the lineup page itself, you can see the total salary used, the fantasy projections, and the ownership projections. Down here at the bottom, you have a couple of sliding scales, which are really useful because a fantasy projection by itself or an ownership projection by itself doesn't actually mean anything. It's more important how it compares to the alternatives. So down here at the bottom, you can see that it projects pretty well compared to alternatives, and it is relatively contrarian compared to your alternative lineups as well. And then you get all of the player-by-player data, the player salary, player projected fantasy points, and ownership. And then over here on the far right-hand side, you do have these arrows that allow you to customize your lineups. So for example, if you looked at this lineup and you really like the way it looks in general, but you don't like Tre Jones, you can click these arrows. He's $4,700. So you would scroll down. You have $400 left. So you can replace him with anyone 5,100 or below. Say you scroll down and you see Malachi Branham is projected similarly. He's 1 fantasy point less, but he's getting like half the ownership. So you would rather have him. Just click the arrows. Tyus Jones becomes Malachi Branham, and you now have a lineup that you like more. So you do have that customization option if you do like the foundation in general of the lineup, but there is a player or two you want to change out. You could, of course, also do something like swap down from Zion and then swap up from Tre Jones. You have the ability to do all of those things. And now I'm going to just save the first 20 lineups that show up, and we can see how our player exposures look on the next page. At the top, we have Zach Collins in 90% of our lineups. Nothing surprising there. We currently have him projected for about 90% ownership. Victor Wembanyama is out for the Spurs tonight, so we are assuming that Zach Collins is going to move into the starting lineup. He's just $4,900 and looks like the clear top value on tonight's slate. Next, we have 85% Tre Jones at $4,700. As I mentioned a second ago, he's projected for 35% ownership, so we're quite a bit over the field there. I do think that our projection might be a little bit high on him, but certainly reasonable. We have him at 22 minutes. If you wanted to, say, cut that to 20 or 19, you would lose a bit of him, but either way, he looks like a pretty solid value option here. We're able to get to a lot of Giannis because, in part, of Zach Collins and Tre Jones. Getting to 60% of him on the other side of that game, great matchup for him. The Spurs have been one of the worst defenses in the league this year. They are one of the fastest-paced teams, and they're losing their best individual rim protector with Wembanyama not playing. Sets up fantastic for Giannis. 3K, Sandro Mamukelashvili in 55% of our lineups. We don't know for sure, so there is risk here, but we're assuming that he will be the backup to Zach Collins. We have him only projected for about 14 minutes, but at 3K on this slate, that's still getting him in a lot of lineups. We're getting the 50% Devin Vassell, 50% Herb Jones, who looks like a good value at 5,500. Then we're back to the Spurs with Keldon Johnson at 6,900 in 40% of our lineups. Pat Connaughton showing up as a value option in 35% of lineups for Milwaukee at 3,900. Klay Thompson from Golden State, 6,500, 30% owned, or in 30% of our lineups, rather. Then we're back to the Milwaukee game with 25% Bobby Portis. We have 25% Joe Val at 7,200 and 20% Zion, who, as I mentioned a minute ago, is questionable here. So we will need to keep an eye on that. If he were to be ruled out, not only will it make Joe Val look better, Brandon Ingram look better, and CJ McCollum look better, it will open up some potential value in the likes of Najee Marshall and Trey Murphy as well. Now, moving over to the FanDuel side, we can look at the same thing. But first, if you are looking to use the lineup generator for yourself, check out the link in the description below on YouTube or the link in the tweet below on Twitter. You can sign up. It's $14.95 per week. And we created this tool with single entry, 3 max, and 20 max players in mind. One of the most difficult things about progressing in DFS and getting better is accessing quality data and quality tools without breaking the bank and committing so much money to the data and the tools that it's very difficult for you to profit. We know that a lot of players don't start out with a massive bankroll and you're playing lower stake stuff. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for everyone to put a ton of money out and use a full simulations package or whatever the case may be. So here we have this tool that's available to you for $14.95 per week. It utilizes all of our other data, our projections, our ownership projections, our simulation models. It utilizes all of that on the back end and presents you with the final result. And you do have the ability to customize as well, as I was talking about before. So sign up using the link in the description below. Highly recommend you give it a chance. Now, moving over to the FanDuel side and looking at contrarian lineups again, we're going to save those first 20. Generally, we're going to have better players show up on FanDuel just because their pricing isn't as tight as DraftKings. And that's mostly the case here. Zach Collins, again, at the top, only $5,100 in 90% of our lineups. He has power forward eligibility on FanDuel, so he's very easy to get to. We have him projected for about 88% ownership. We're getting to 70% Herb Jones, 65% Trey Jones, who is also $4,700 on FanDuel, just like he was on DraftKings. We have him projected for 31% ownership there. 7K, Keldon Johnson showing up 50% of the time. We're getting to a lot of Ja Morant here, 45% of our lineups. I really like that play. I like it on DraftKings as well, personally. This is his first game back from suspension, but he's been practicing with the team. I kind of view this as a plus. We're in the middle of December, and Ja Morant is fully healthy, hasn't played 2 months of basketball, hasn't been getting banged up. So I think he looks great here. Expecting him to play low 30s in minutes. Don't see any reason why he would be significantly restricted. We're getting to an $8,700 Steph Curry 35% of the time, 30% Anthony Simons, and then 25% of a bunch of guys. Devin Vassell, who's actually getting 67% ownership, so we're a bit under the field there. 25% Eric Gordon, 25% Zion and Joe Val, and then 25% Chris Middleton, who has also been playing increased minutes for Milwaukee, generally giving us around 30 to 31 minutes now as well. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for checking out the video. Don't forget to sign up using the link in the description below, and good luck on your lineups tonight.